Welcome back to the second part of Lecture 3.3. So, I hope okay na kayo, naintindihan nyo na yung rates of change because we'll be discussing rectilinear motion in this video. So, suppose we have a particle which is moving along a straight line and we shall refer to this line as the s-axis. Okay? The position of the particle at any time t is given by the function s of t, which is called the position function of the particle. Okay? So, s of t, ito yung tinatawag na position function. Okay. Now, the average velocity of the particle on the interval from t0 to t is given by this formula. Okay? So, parang kapareho lang nung illustration natin kanina dun sa hot air balloon. So, s of t, or the position at t, time t, minus the position at time t0 over the difference in time. So, kung may average velocity, we can also talk about the instantaneous velocity. And using the definition or the discussion we had earlier, the instantaneous velocity of the particle at time t is the limit of delta s over delta t as delta t approaches 0, or this is s prime of t, the first derivative or the derivative of s with respect to t. Now, when we say instantaneous speed, this is just the absolute value of the velocity. So, yung speed natin is always positive. The instantaneous acceleration, a of t, is dv over dt, or v prime over, or v prime of t. But since the velocity is s prime of t, yung acceleration natin is actually the second derivative, or s double prime of t. Yan. So, what information can we get from the sign of the velocity and the acceleration? Unahin natin yung velocity, ha. So, if the velocity is positive, then the particle is moving in the positive direction of s. Ang usual na positive direction ay to the right or upward. Okay? Next, if the velocity is negative, then we say that the particle is moving in the negative direction of s, usually to the left or downward at time t. If the velocity is 0, either the particle is not moving or it is changing direction. Okay? So, pag 0 yung velocity, either hindi gumagalaw yung particle or nag-change ng direction. Okay? So, this is for the velocity. Next, what information can we get from the acceleration? So, if the acceleration is positive, then the velocity of the particle is increasing at time t. Itong increasing na to, increasing numerically. Kaya, let's look at these cases. If the velocity is positive, then the speed is increasing, or the particle is speeding up. For example, ang velocity natin ay 5. For example, the velocity is 5 feet per second or meters per second. It's increasing. So, from 5 naging 6. Okay? If you get the absolute value, if this is the velocity, yung absolute value niya, which is the speed, equal din dyan. So, it's still speeding up from 5 to 6. On the other hand, if the velocity is negative, okay? If the velocity is negative, so, for example, negative 5, sabi natin, pag ang acceleration ay positive, the velocity of the particle is increasing. So, a number greater than negative 5 is, say, negative 4. Okay? So, the velocity is increasing. But if you look at the speed, remember yung speed ay ang absolute value ng velocity. So, the speed changed from 5 to 4. Yung absolute value ng velocity ay nag-decrease from 5 to 4. Therefore, we say that the particle is slowing down. So, ganun din, kung negative naman yung acceleration, we say that the velocity of the particle is decreasing. Ito, pag positive yung velocity, obvious naman. Tingnan na lang natin kung negative yung velocity. So, kung ang velocity ay, say, negative 5, decreasing, di ba? So, from negative 5, bumaba siya to negative 6. Kung titingnan natin yung absolute value or yung speed, from 5 naging 6. Okay? So, in this case, yung speed naman natin ay nag-increase. Okay? Last, if the acceleration is 0 on the interval I, then the velocity of the particle is constant. It doesn't mean that the particle is not moving. Okay? So, constant lang yung velocity, kaya 0 yung acceleration. So, summarize lang natin to. Medyo magulo or nakakalito. Pero kung gusto niyo lang malaman kung yung particle ay bumibilis or if the particle is speeding up or slowing down, okay, tingnan niyo lang yung sign ng velocity and acceleration. Diba? If you look here, okay, positive. Pag positive yung acceleration and positive yung velocity, the particle is speeding up. Kung negative yung acceleration, negative yung velocity, the particle is speeding up. Okay, so kung pareho ng sign yung velocity and acceleration, we say that the particle is speeding up. On the other hand, it's slowing down when the velocity and acceleration are opposite in sign. Okay, so tandaan yan. Now we look at two examples. Okay, so a particle moves along a horizontal coordinate line. In such a way that its position at time t is specified by this function. S of t equals t cubed minus 12t squared plus 36t minus 30, where s is measured in feet and t in seconds. So let's look at the questions one by one. So first, we're asked to find the instantaneous velocity and the instantaneous acceleration. Okay, dali lang yan. We know that the instantaneous velocity, v of t, is just the derivative of your position function. Okay, so kunin lang natin ang derivative ng s of t. Derivative of t cubed is 3t squared minus derivative of 12t squared is 12 times 2, so 24t plus 36. Okay, so that's our velocity function. Ano yung units nito if you want to write? So s is in feet and t is in seconds, so your velocity is in feet per second. The acceleration is the derivative of your velocity. Okay, so be sure na tama yung velocity para tama rin yung acceleration na makukuha nyo. Derivative of the velocity, Derivative of the velocity is 6t minus 24 plus derivative of 36 is 0. So, ito yung instantaneous velocity and instantaneous acceleration. Ay, ano yung unit ng acceleration? Feet per second square. Okay? Yan, sige. So, I've written it down here for a reference. So, you're asked to describe the position and motion of the particle in a table that includes the intervals of time when the particle is moving to the left or to the right, when the velocity is increasing or decreasing, and when the speed is increasing or decreasing. Okay, so we'll make a table of signs. If you recall, para makagawa tayo ng table of signs, so for t greater than or equal to 0, remember, ang time natin is always greater than or equal to 0. Walang negative time. Kaya yun lang ang isasama natin sa table. And aside from starting at 0, ano yung isasama natin? Ilagay natin yung values of t when the velocity is 0 and when yung values of t when the acceleration is equal to 0. Okay, so tingnan natin. Ang v of t natin, ito. Factor out ko na yung 3. So v of t is 3 times the quantity t squared minus 8t plus 12. Okay, so you have 3 times the quantity, factors nito, t minus 6 times t minus 2. Okay, if you equate this to 0, you get t equals 6 or t equals 2. Okay, pareho naman silang positive. So, we include these in the table. Next, when is your acceleration equal to 0? So, a of t, if you factor out 6, you get t minus 4. Equating this to 0, you get 6 times t minus 4 or t equals 4. Okay, so you also include 4 sa table. Okay, so eto ha, I already included. So we start, for rectilinear motion we always start at 0. Then you have t equals 2, 4, and 6. The values that we obtained earlier. Okay? And then, in between these values, ilagay nyo na yung intervals. T between 0 to 2, t between 2 to 4, t between 4 to 6, and t greater than 6. Okay? Sa columns, lagay natin yung value ng S of t, P of t, A of t, and then the conclusions. Okay? Eto, yung values ng S of t, okay lang, nilagay ko na dyan. Just verify this. Now, dun lang, substitute nyo lang dito sa S of t. If t is 0, so 0, 0, 0, you get S equals negative 30. Okay? And then the rest, if t is 2, you get S of t equals 2. If t is 4, so substitute nyo yung 4 dito, you get S equals negative 14. And if t is 6, you get S equals negative 30. Okay? So, just verify these later. Ano yung conclusion natin sa mga nakuha na to? Okay, remember, S is your position function. So, pag negative, it means that the particle is to the left of the origin. Yan. So, lahat ng negative nasa left of origin. Positive, it's to the right of the origin. Okay? So, yan yung position ng particle at these times. Next, we fill up the column for V. Okay? Ito yung velocity function. Ilan to ulit nagsi-0? Your velocity is 0 at t equals 2 and at t equals 6. So, lagay nyo na yung 0 doon. For values of t less than 2, okay, so this will be negative. Negative to. Negative din to. Negative. Negative, negative. Positive. Sorry, positive pala dapat. Okay. For values of t between 2 and 6, okay, if you substitute 4 minus 2 is positive. 4 minus 6 is negative. Positive times negative, negative. Okay? Then for values of t greater than 6, so this will be positive, positive, we have positive. Okay? So, yan yung sign ng velocity. Interpretation natin, if the velocity is positive, the particle is moving to the right. Fill up lang natin. So, if the velocity is negative, it's moving towards the left. Okay? Last column, yung column for acceleration. Okay, so the acceleration is 0 when t equals 4. Okay? Dito. We look at the acceleration function. It's 0 when t equals 4. For values of t less than 4, this is negative. For values of t greater than 4, your acceleration is positive. Okay? Pag negative yung acceleration, ano yung ibig sabihin? So, the velocity is decreasing. Velocity is decreasing. If it's positive, the velocity is increasing. Okay? Sige, by the way, sorry nakalimutan ko. If the velocity is 0, ano yung masasabi natin? If the velocity is 0, it means that the particle is changing direction. Indicate lang natin. Change direction. Okay? Next, so, na-interpret na natin yung velocity and acceleration. What can we say about the speed? Again, if the sign of the velocity and acceleration are the same, we say that the particle is speeding up. So, kailan ba pareho yung sign ng velocity and acceleration? Dito parehong negative, dito parehong negative. So, the particle is speeding up at these intervals. So, speeding up. And for the rest, na magkaiba yung sign ng velocity and acceleration, we say that the particle is slowing down. So here, the particle is slowing down. Okay? Or delete na natin ito. Yan. Okay, so yun yung table natin. Next, problem number 3, we want to show the motion of the particle schematically. Sige, ilista lang natin ulit. So, tignan natin yung position ng particle ha. At t equals 0, it's at negative 30 units. At t equals 2, it's 2 units. T equals 4, negative 14. And t equals 6, negative 30. Pero kailan nag-change ng direction? Okay, so nag-change ng direction at t equals 2 and at t equals 6. Twice lang nag-change. Yun lang yung starting position and then yung points kung kailan nag-change ng direction, yun yung mahalaga sa diagram. Okay? So, suppose this is our horizontal axis. If this is 0, ang kailangan lang natin, negative 30 and 2. Okay? Kasi dito nag-change ng direction. So, at t equals 0, andito yung particle natin. Then, at t equals 2, ito, t equals 2, andito na siya. 2 units to the right of the origin. Then again, at t equals 6, it's at negative 30. Okay. Let's just connect. Ay, sorry. T equals 6, nag-change ulit ng direction. Okay. So, first, nag-move yung particle to the right. At t equals 2, nag-change ng direction. It moved to the left. And then at t equals 6, nag-change ng direction. It again moved to the right. Okay, so this is the motion of the particle. Question number 4, determine the distance or the total distance traveled by the particle during the first 7 seconds. Yan, sige. So, andito na yung schematic diagram. Okay, kunin na lang natin yung total distance. Take note na yung total distance traveled is not equal to the position at the 7th second minus the position at the 0th second. Kasi, ilang beses niyang tinrace etong path na to. Okay, so we have to follow the path. Okay, so we can write the total distance traveled to be, first, the distance here. Okay, so that's s of 2, or the position at t equals 2 seconds minus the position at the 0th second. Okay, plus, okay, we consider this part. Remember, yung distance is equal to the absolute value of the difference. Okay, pagka one-dimensional systems. Okay, yan, sige, so plus, sorry. Yan, s of 6 minus s of 2. Okay? So, nakuha na natin to. This is S of 2 minus S of 0. This is S of 6 minus S of 2. And then yung last, kasi 7 seconds yung gusto natin eh. So, plus absolute value of S of 7 minus S of 6. Okay? Sige, so let's get the values. S of 2, ito diba? S of 2 is 2 minus S of 0, ito yung S of 0. S of 0 is negative 30 plus S of 6, again, is negative 30 minus S of 2 is 2 plus S of 7. Can you compute that? Sige, pa-verify na lang that S of 7 is equal to 23. Okay, paki-double check ha. 23 minus S of 6 is negative 30. Ay, sorry, negative 23 to. Okay. Yan, sige. So, 2 minus negative 30, you have 32 plus 32 plus 7. This is equal to 71 feet. Okay? So, in the earlier example, we used a horizontal axis. In the next example, we will be looking at a vertical axis. This is similar to the problems that you may have encountered in physics. But take note ha, do not use the formulas in physics. Kasi this is Math 21, so dapat pareho yung sagot na makukuha. But we want to see how you'll apply differentiation. Okay, so please follow the technique that we use. Paano kunin yung velocity? Velocity is the derivative of the position function S. Acceleration is the derivative of the velocity function V. Okay? Sige, so let's look at this example. A ball was thrown from the edge of a cliff such that its directed distance from the ground after t seconds is given by S of t equals negative 16t squared plus 32t plus 128 feet. So, we want to determine these quantities. Isahin na lang natin. So, first, we want to determine the acceleration of the ball at t equals 3 seconds. Okay? Again, ang first step, kunin muna natin yung velocity and acceleration functions. So, the velocity, or v of t, is the derivative of s of t. The derivative is negative 32t plus 32. This is in feet per second. Okay, yung acceleration, derivative ng velocity. So, negative 32 feet per second square. Okay, so kung ang tinatanong ay yung acceleration ng ball at t equals 3, that's a of 3. But since your acceleration is constant, a of 3, again, is just negative 32 feet per second square. Can you compare this to what you get in physics? Diba yung acceleration due to gravity is 32 feet per second square. Okay, second question, we want to find the maximum height that the ball will attain. Okay. Sige. Quick drawing. So, yung ball was thrown from the edge of a cliff. Okay. So, because of gravity, it will reach a maximum height before it goes down to the ground. Okay. Ano ngayon yung condition dito? Ito yung maximum height. When you say maximum height, ito. So, this is the maximum height. This actually is a value of S. Okay? So, we want S of something. S of t. Pero ano yung time na na-reach niya itong maximum height na to? What do you notice? Sa maximum height, nagkaroon tayo ng change in direction. So, upward muna yung ball, tapos naging downward. Pag meron kayong change in direction, ano yung sabi natin kanina? The velocity is equal to 0. So, at the maximum height, you have this condition. The velocity is equal to 0. So, using this, kunin natin yung time kung kailan na-reach yung maximum height. So, maximum height is reached when v of t is equal to 0. Sabi natin, yung v of t kanina ay negative 32t plus 32 equals 0. So, solving for t equals 1 second. So, na-reach yung maximum height after 1 second. Okay, to compute for the height, okay, this is a position, so get s at 1 or s of 1. Substitute nyo dito sa function natin. We have negative 16 plus 32 times 1 plus 128 feet. Okay? Sige. So, this is equal to 144 feet. Okay? Please indicate the units. Okay? Okay na? So, that's the maximum height that the ball will attain. Next, question number 3, the velocity at which the ball was thrown. Okay, saan binato yung bola? Dun sa edge ng cliff. Okay, anong condition dun sa edge ng cliff? It was thrown from the edge of the cliff at t equal to 0. So, if you're looking for the velocity at which the ball was thrown, we are just looking for the velocity at time equal to 0. So again, yung v of t natin ay negative 32t plus 32. So v of 0 is 32 feet per second. Okay? Next. Okay, so how long would it take the ball to hit the ground and the speed at which the ball would hit the ground? Okay, tignan ulit natin. So, the ball was thrown from the edge of the cliff. Tapos, babalik siya sa ground. Okay? So, tinatanong how long would it take the ball to hit the ground? Ano yung condition natin dito sa ground? Okay? Take note, etong s of t natin, this is the directed distance from the ground after t seconds. So, kung nasa ground tayo, ano yung distance mo from the ground? Siyempre, 0. So, at the ground, s is 0. So, if you want to determine the time for the ball to hit the ground, you equate s of t to 0. But s of t is given here. Factor out na natin yung negative 16. So, you have negative 16 t square minus 2t minus 8. Okay? Para mas madaling mag-factor. So, this is equal to negative 16 t minus 4 t plus 2. And this is equal to 0. So, solving for t, we get t equals 4 or t equals negative 2. Pero sabi nga natin, walang negative time. So, t equals 4 lang. So, we say that the ball will hit the ground after 4 seconds. Okay, so paki-complete na lang yung sentence. Hindi na kasi kasya dito. And then, we want to find the speed at which the ball would hit the ground. So, velocity. Ang speed ay absolute value ng velocity. Kunin muna natin yung velocity. The velocity at 4 seconds. So, negative 32 times 4 plus 32. The velocity is negative 96 feet per second. Bakit negative? Kasi downward yung direction. Now, to get the speed is the absolute value. The speed is 96 feet per second. Okay, absolute value lang ng negative 96. Okay, clear? Sige, so to practice or to check kung naintindihan niyo yung lesson natin, you can try these items. So, sa math module 166, page 166, A3, and page 167, A1. Okay? Ito na yun, A3 and A1. Yun. Thank you for listening. Kung may questions, just email us. Thank you.